Welcome to the High Potential Startup Series. I'm your host, Stephanie Murtagh, and this week I'm joined by Pedro Correa de Sampaio, co-founder and CEO of Neobe Therapeutics, a startup developing a synthetic live biotherapeutic platform to enable immunotherapy success in patients with immune-excluded tumours. Pedro and I talked about his journey in building Neobe and developing their products, overcoming challenges in a new business venture as a founder and CEO, and where Neobe is heading in the future. We're proud to have this podcast sponsored by Octopus Ventures, one of Europe's largest and most active VCs, with over £1 billion under management and a portfolio of more than 100 companies. Their investments specialise in 5 areas: health, fintech, deep tech, consumer, and business-to-business software. The health team in particular is looking to back entrepreneurs who are transforming the health industry, from digital therapeutics through to biotech at seed through Series B. I hope you enjoy the episode. Pedro, good morning. A very warm welcome as guest to our podcast today.
Hi, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here.
So we're delighted to have the opportunity to learn more about your background. For starters, we're very intrigued to hear about Neobe Therapeutics and would love to hear the problem that you're trying to solve.
Yes, I'm very excited to tell you about what we're doing at Neobe. My background is in cancer therapeutics, but what I've been sort of fascinated by since the beginning of my career was what we call the tumor microenvironment, which is basically everything that makes up a solid tumor that isn't a cancer cell. So any other component of the cancer's tissue that includes things like blood vessels, components of the immune system, structural components that maintain an organ in place, all of those are involved in how a tumor progresses and how a tumor responds to therapy. And I always thought it was a particularly attractive target therapeutically because, cancer cells, as by definition, are genetically unstable, and that is in a lot of cases what leads to resistance to treatments that are developed against cancer. So it always made sense to me to, instead of going after cells that by definition are going to multiply rapidly and potentially find ways to escape your treatment, to actually attack the scaffolding that keeps these cells in place. And this was just sort of to introduce the concepts, because then the problem that we're trying to face is one of the ways that people have done that has gained a lot of attention in the last sort of 10, 15 years is immunotherapies. They're one of the biggest advances in the treatment of cancer in the last few years. It has dealt to really significant improvements in the lives of a number of patients by developing these drugs that can trigger your immune system to combat cancer cells themselves. And when it works, it's fantastic. But the problem is it doesn't work in a lot of cases. It tends to work, particularly in solid tumors, it tends to work in about 15 to 20% of patients. So the large majority of patients don't respond. And part of the reason why they don't respond is exactly because of this microenvironment, is exactly because of the structure of the abnormal tissue that makes up a tumor that can create barriers to the immune system to come in and combat the tumor. And that's the problem that we're trying to address.
Amazing. I mean, it really is in the minority. So talk to me, where are you at as a business today? And where is the business heading?
Yes. So we've just actually turned 2 years old as a company since we incorporated. We're having a little celebration about that this week.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And it's been quite the journey, because we started the company very specifically, as I said, to address these local microenvironmental barriers to the success of immunotherapies. And very particularly, what we were trying to do was to find a way where we could physically remove barriers that exist in the tumor that prevent immune cells from coming into the tumor and responding to these drugs that activate them to generate an anti-cancer response. Particularly, we're talking about highly fibrotic tumors where you've got actual biophysical barriers in the form of fibers, things like what we call the extracellular matrix that sort of provides the structure to the tumor that is extremely dense, extremely creates a lot of internal pressure, and it prevents proper infiltration into the tumor. So the way that we decided to address this was by developing a platform to engineer live biotherapeutics to remove these barriers in the tumor. What does that mean? That means we're taking strains of bacteria, and we can go into that in more detail, that we know have an innate capability of going into these tumors. We've known that for several years. And we're using synthetic biology to modify these bacteria so that when they get into the tumor, they produce a payload that removes these barriers to immune infiltration. We started doing this 2 years ago, as I said. We had a very clear mission of this is what we wanted to do because we thought this is a problem that needs solving, and this is, we believe, an exciting way to address this problem. And during these 2 years, most of what we did was build our platform, was take the strains of bacteria that we're using as kind of the chassis for our live biotherapeutics, and building all of the genetic tools that we need to engineer them to perform this particular action. And we're now in the process of starting to take 2 products that we have in the pipeline into preclinical development. And we're raising a seed round to be able to do that, to start, getting the data that we need to prove that these products work in vivo.
Seed round soon, hopefully. So with that, what does that mean, and how does that translate into how you push the dial for the business? What's the next step?
So the next step is exactly a lot of proof of concept work. So we were very fortunate to one have a couple of early stage investors that believed in what we were doing from an early stage, and to also be able to get a couple of competitive grants, particularly from one grant from Innovate UK that really enabled us to get off the ground, and that was enough to kind of like build our products, to build our tool set to get these bacteria engineered. And we've got a few collaborations where we could prove that they work in sort of different kind of settings that we can go into. But really, the proof for anyone else is in the pudding. And if we want to get to prove that we can do this and get this project off the ground, then what we need to do is to take these engineered live biotherapeutics that we've developed and put them into mouse models of cancer. The next step is in vivo testing, and those experiments are expensive and they take a long time. So that is one of the main things that we're going to do with the funds that we raise our seed round with. It's going to be number one, and that's going to be by far the priority. Start building a regulatory pipeline, because there's a lot of regulatory issues that we're going to have to address in order to be putting these products into the clinic, and we're working with some consultants to address that, and that's going to be a priority for the next couple of years as well. And then hire additional people to our team, which is already great, but we need to expand it to be able to kind of build on the platform that we've designed.
Speaking to the early stage investors that you brought on board, how helpful, how integral have they been on the journey so far?
Oh, incredibly helpful. We were fortunate to start and incorporate our company off of the back of a collaboration between Cancer Research UK and Deep Science Ventures. Deep Science Ventures is a venture creating company based here in the UK that develops startups in different deep tech fields. Pharma and oncology being one of them. And they were hugely supportive throughout our journey, both in, helping us to get the company together in the beginning, but also in supporting us through these initial 2 years, both in terms of the actual growth of the company, but also contacts with additional investors and really helping us take this project to the next step. And then we were fortunate to get a couple more investors throughout the process that believed in our mission. And of course, they were incredibly helpful, because without their financial support, we wouldn't have been able to do what we did. But they were also really, because they really believe in what we're doing, they want to make sure that we can get to the next step. So they've been really supportive in making sure that we've got the conditions to build what we need to build, and that they provide us with the introductions to the people that we need to get to the next step.
Yeah. That's really key, right? I mean, what we talk to investors and experience that we have is that, there's some amazing company builders and there's some who maybe not so hands-on, but actually getting you in front of the right people, because it's always hard work.
Yes.
Raising capital. It's never not. It sure helps if you've got great science and technology and an inspiring leadership team, but it's never easy and it does take time.
Yeah, and particularly in the way that we did it, if I may, because I think a lot of innovation, especially in this space, happens through kind of like the spin-up model, where you make a really exciting discovery in your lab as an academic, you find a potential therapeutic target that looks incredible, or you've developed a new technology to deliver therapeutics to a particular site. And then you try to build a company around it, and you try to make sure that there's a market for the technology that you've developed academically. And what we did was slightly different, and something that in this area, I think particularly is possible now with the golden age of biology and all of the tools that we have available to us with synthetic biology and with engineering biology, which is to go, okay, here's a problem. How can we engineer an ideal solution for this model that circumvents constraints that people have found in the past? Let's start with the problem. Let's build a solution for this problem, and then create a company around it to make sure that there's a path for commercialization for the products that we're developing. And that, I think, means that what we're building is really exciting, but it does also mean that we have challenges because we started from scratch and we're competing with people that have been building data throughout, years of academic work.
Very, very fascinating. You talked about the building the genetic tools and the platform, and could you go into a bit more detail to that specifically?
Yeah, we have a bad habit of getting a little bit buried in our jargon, don't we? So I started by saying that what we're doing is engineering live biotherapeutics, which basically means engineering tumor colonizing bacteria. We're taking strains of bacteria that we know are safe to administer to patients. They're non-pathogenic bacteria, and they like living in tumors because the kind of physiological environment that you have in the tumor creates all of the perfect conditions for these bacteria to thrive. So what we're doing is taking advantage to that. And by platform and synthetic biology tools, what we mean is basically genetic engineering, because these are tools that we have right now. As I just mentioned, we're kind of in the golden age of biology. So we have DNA assembly technology that enables us to engineer these bacteria to be active only under specific circumstances and to produce payloads, to produce proteins in specific conditions. So that's what our platform is like, is we're taking these bacteria and we're using DNA assembly technologies to engineer different genetic circuits into them. And what this means is kind of basically taking DNA into little building blocks like a Lego, and that ends up being our final bacteria. And the different pieces of the Lego are things like biosensors to make sure that the bacteria is only active within the tumor. It's the payload itself, which are proteins that we know have the capability of removing the barriers to immune infiltration that I mentioned in the beginning, and things like mechanisms to ensure that the bacteria aren't able to really survive anywhere else. And we take all of these circuits, we put them together, and we've got one final product, and that is our live biotherapeutic, and that's what we then take through to the pipeline.
I'd be really interested to hear your background. You've done some really interesting things so far in your career. So studying a PhD in oncology and cancer biology. Can you talk more to us about the sort of motivations that you've had so far, moving away from research and into the sort of commercialization of technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really very fortunate in my career to be able to work in some really exciting places and some really exciting projects. Biology was always my passion, regardless of what that biology meant, sort of the study and understanding of living systems, and particularly, how I can apply that to potentially develop new solutions to treat diseases. And within that, cancer very quickly became fascinating to me as a biological problem. So from my initial biology studies, I went to Cambridge to get a PhD in oncology, exactly to be able to do that. And that is where my initial fascination for this area of the tumor microenvironment developed. And specifically for my PhD, what I was doing was kind of generating, I guess nowadays we'd call it organoids, but sort of, 15 years ago when I was starting this project, we weren't calling them that. We were kind of calling them mini spheroids, where we could, in a petri dish, generate kind of mini tumors with blood vessels. So we could study how blood vessels formed within a tumor. And I went from that into a postdoc in Texas at the MD Anderson Cancer Center. I've been really lucky with my timings because I did my PhD at Cambridge at what at the time was a brand new cancer research UK research institute that had just opened, and I was one of the first people there. And then I went to Houston to the MD Anderson Cancer Center, which is one of the biggest cancer hospitals in the world, at a time where its research programs were becoming revitalized by a lot of really exciting researcher in this specific space that were coming into that hospital. One of them being my mentor at the time, Raghu Kalori, who's a really well-established researcher in the tumor microenvironment, and the other one being Jim Allison, who won the Nobel Prize for his discovery for his advances in immunotherapies for cancer. So I got to work in this really exciting environment and to do a lot of research exactly into understanding how different components of the microenvironment kind of interact with each other spatially. And this is how I initially came across this problem of immune exclusion and the local barriers that you can have within the tumor to the infiltration of immune cells and how that can impact the way that patients develop and potentially respond to therapies. And that was the point also where I was like, you know what, I got into cancer research because I kind of wanted to make a difference and I wanted to have an impact and I wanted to develop something that sort of generates an impact in the real world. And I didn't really feel like I was doing that in academia. And this is not a diss on academia at all, because it's obviously essential. We couldn't do what we're doing in applied research if we didn't have the academic researchers to build the basis on which we construct everything else. But I was just feeling that I needed something else. And that's sort of what made me take the decision to kind of take some of the knowledge that I'd gained by working in really exciting academic institutes and go like, okay, how can I apply this into something that actually makes a difference in people's lives? And this is how I came across Deep Science Ventures and how that ended up turning into me founding Neobe.
Fantastic. And as you say, often it's all about right time, and it sounds like there's been some very influential people and opportunities that's seen you to your career.
Yes.
Today. What do you enjoy most about being CEO and co-founder?
It's just really exciting, I think, as a scientist before anything else. It's really exciting to have an idea and build a plan and kind of see it come to fruition. It's really exciting to me, as I mentioned to you earlier that we just that Neobe's just turned 2 since we incorporated in the beginning of 2021. And at the time, it was just sort of like me and my co-founder, which, by the way, was another of the fantastic people that I found that were essential for the things that we've achieved. It was me and my co-founder coming together to build Neobe, because I was a cancer person, but I had no idea how to engineer bacteria. And Annalise Soulier, who is the co-founder of Neobe, was a really accomplished bacterial engineer, and we got together and immediately, we just could see eye to eye, and our strategy just made sense. From that point on, where there was just the two of us with an idea, very little money and barely a lab to work on, to suddenly now where we've got, a team of people, we've got 2 products that we've developed, we've demonstrated that they work in the way that we've planned them to work. It's just really fantastic to see things to see these products being generated and to see a path for them to get to the clinic. That's really enjoyable. And I love running a team, and I love, a lot of what I do as a CEO is kind of things like this. It's telling people about what we do. It's kind of selling the story and selling the vision, and talking to people about what we are trying to build. And I do really enjoy doing that as well.
How did you and your co-founder get together? How did you meet?
Again, very serendipitously, as someone who knew the two of us, and knew that I was looking for someone that understood bacterial engineering to try and sort of build this idea, and see if it had legs to walk on. And this person introduced us, and very quickly we hit it off, because very quickly it turned out that Annalise was also thinking about what would be potentially next for her. And when I kind of presented her with the initial sort of proto idea behind Neobe, she was like, yeah, I think we can do this, and immediately started thinking about how we could do this. And it was just very quickly, it went from me looking for a co-founder to me having a partner, and it felt kind of like it just happened like this.
What advice would you give someone if they were thinking about going through the journey that you've just gone through?
I mean, the biggest advice, the biggest advice that I can give is just do it. Right? Is believe in your idea and do it. But obviously, I understand that that's a little bit facetious. There's a lot that you need to consider in order to be able to do it. And one, de-risk your idea as much as you can. Look at what everyone else is doing, what you're doing, why is it different, and are you sure, and what kind of data can you build quickly to prove that this is going to work? Because this was one of the biggest things for us in getting Neobe off the ground. Was, okay, we've got this idea, what is the absolute minimal amount of data that we can generate, that we can then build on top of to generate more income, to build the rest of the platform. And we did it, and we got an Innovate UK grant, and everything came after that. And the other thing on top of that is people. And people is not just in terms of your own team, which is obviously essential, but it's in terms of who you work with. And we've been incredibly fortunate to have fantastic collaborations that really helped us build the products that we're building. And one of the biggest and most welcome surprises for me, once I started sort of going down this path in biotech, is just how open people are to collaborating and to building things together. And we were able to find some great people to work with, both academics. We've got a really great long-standing collaboration with a group at the Barts Cancer Institute at Queen Mary University in London, but even other founders who are just very, very willing to help and to build things together. So yeah, have an idea, de-risk your idea, make sure that your idea has legs to walk on, and that there's a market for it. Build the data that you need to prove that it works as quickly as you can, and find the right collaborations to bring it to life.
I think on the collaboration piece, it really does take a village, doesn't it?
It does.
And it's great you can lean in, and there are people there that have been really instrumental in getting the business to where it is today. There's no question that building and managing businesses is very challenging. How do you manage any feelings of doubt? How have you overcome those in your role as co-founder and CEO?
It's hard. I think everyone in this field, and everyone in science in general, I would bet is familiar with imposter syndrome, and imposter syndrome is real, and it's very easy to, especially when you're trying to build something that is particularly new, it's very easy to kind of fall back on, oh, can we actually do this? Is this actually real? So, one thing is, those are things that you go through as an academic as well, and in science in general. So I was used to dealing with those feelings to start with. And I think the best way of addressing that is to really be proactive at managing the highs to counterbalance the lows. Because yes, there are times when it's difficult. There are times where you don't see a path ahead. There were, just a year ago, at the beginning of 2022, we had just run out of a lab space because the lab where we were was about to close down. We were about to run out of money. We really didn't see a path ahead. And then suddenly, within a month, we'd been awarded this grant and everything took a turn. But there was a period there where it was really hard to see.
Pretty intense, right?
Yes, it was hard to see where we were going,
nice.
and it's at that point where once you sort of climb up from this valley and into the next hill, make sure you celebrate and you enjoy the hill, because there will be more valleys coming, and it is constantly like this. And this is why we really made the point of this week getting all of our team and our collaborators together to mark the second anniversary of Neo, because we need to take the time to look back and recognize that we've come a long way since we've started, and at times it's difficult, but we believe in what we're doing and we believe in our mission, and we push forward, and we celebrate the victories when we have them, so that we can sort of push through the darker times when they come.
And that is it. It's extreme highs and lows, isn't it? And it's what we learn from the low points, and being able to step back and enjoy the moment of success, the wins, so, the marginal gains, and just recognizing them when they happen and enjoying the rides as well, because it's not easy.
It's really not easy. And me, myself, I had to educate myself to do that, because it's very easy to go like, oh, okay, we've just achieved this. When's the next thing, right? What's the next objective? And you obviously have to continue doing that. But if you're just going past to the next level, kind of like a video game, when you're in the process of getting there, and in the moments where it looks like maybe you won't get there, you'll start struggling. So that's why it's really important to, every time you reach one of these milestones, to recognize that you've hit the milestone and learn from the process that took you into hitting that milestone, so that you can then prepare yourself to the path to getting to the next one.
For the next one. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Have your priorities changed from when you first started the business 2 years ago?
I think they always do, kind of naturally, don't they? I mean, initially when we started the business, the priority was to get a business off the ground, right? Was to get the minimal possible amount of funds to get our data together. It was building the background, the structure for what was going to be the technology and the products that we wanted to get together. And now we're getting to a point where the priority is like, okay, is getting more significant funds, so that we can take the initial seed of what we build and kind of start planting an orchard around it, and building our team. Because initially, for a significant amount of time, it was just Annalise and I, and now we have a team of 5, and we're going to have to grow from that after we fundraise. And the priorities, in the process of growing this that sort of tree change from getting the ground ready for the seeds that you put in, to then, making sure that you can expand these seeds into a proper healthy orchard, which I think is, hopefully where we're getting to now, where we go from, focus on the priorities that you need to get the company off the ground, to, okay, now how can we take these things, these seeds that we've developed, and turn them into products that can actually make it to the clinic. And we start thinking about things like, I mentioned early, regulatory approval, what we need to do to be able to guarantee that we have that in due time, having the right people in place, rather than just, initial, building our R&D team in the beginning. Who else do we need on the team right now to be able to help us develop things like that? That change a little bit with when the company grows.
You've built a great team so far. Can you talk to us a bit about the team and harbouring talent into your team? Because essentially, people are at the heart of everything, right? And talk to us a little bit about the team dynamic today.
Yeah, I mean, people 100% are at the heart of everything that we do. I mentioned how absolutely vital it was for us to have the right co-founder team at the start, and the team of Annalise and I, and how important it was for us to work together to build the company. And then as we developed, getting the right research people on the team was great, and we were incredibly fortunate. Actually, when we got our first grant, as part of that grant, we needed to hire a scientist to help us drive that research program forward. And in the process of running interviews for that particular scientist, we ended up actually hiring two, because we found two people that just had exactly the right skill sets that we needed for different parts of our project. And we thought, we need to find a way of getting these two people on the team. And we managed to find a way to be able to do that. We hired one full-time and one part-time, and we've got, two incredible scientists that have a lot of experience in bacterial engineering, and in some cases actually in working with the exact types of bacteria that we're working with. And then we had a couple of master students from Imperial College that did a placement with us over the last year. And one of them ended up, becoming really well versed in the development of some assays that are essential for us to test out our products. And we ended up offering him a position, and he's with us now as a research assistant, and he's doing fantastically well. And sort of, nurturing him and the rest of the team through their development is very, very important to us. And then we've got the collaboration with Queen Mary that has really been I do almost see them as part of the team, because we work so closely together, and we do have one joint PhD student between us and them who's instrumental in testing out our different products as well.
Sounds like a great team dynamic. I used to have mentioned Annalise a number of times during the discussions. What makes for a good business partner? Why does it work, the dynamic? I wish you talked about the very complementary skill sets and what you bring there, but what else works? Why is it such a high functioning relationship?
Yeah, so I think part of it is complementary skill sets, and I'm not talking just scientifically. We are very complementary scientifically, which is great. At Neobe, we are engineering bacterial products to treat cancer patients, and I had a lot of experience in cancer biology. Annalise had a lot of experience in bacterial engineering, so obviously that makes a lot of sense. But we're very complementary in terms of the other skills that you need to run a company, in terms of people management, project management, financial management, pitching. We're good at different things, and it's very easy to kind of know exactly where our responsibilities fall, and that was really helpful in kind of driving our partnership. But really, the main thing is communication. I think more than anything else, and this almost feels like an obvious thing to say, but it really is. We communicate, I think, really well with each other, and we make sure that we keep each other on top of everything that's happening, and we talk about what needs to be done. We keep each other honest, yes, and we're very good at even on that level, kind of sort of balancing each other out. It's often I'll go like, oh, I think this is a really exciting idea and we should do this. And Annalise would be like, okay, calm down. I don't think we can do that quickly. And this sort of balance of expectations is really important, right? But really what underlies everything is good, solid, effective communication, and having the structure in place to do that, and making sure that you're constantly touching base with each other, and that we understand what needs to be done, when it needs to be done, and who is going to do it. And I think we're really good at that, and that's really been what drove things through.
And you trust each other clearly, right? And you're both equally working, as hard and as effectively as each other. Experience of partnerships where there's maybe dysfunctional is where one's working so much harder and it's really high performing, and the other one's just not quite on the level. So really interesting. You say your research is taking you globally. I just wanted to get a sense from you as to the London ecosystem within the life science space specifically. Can you tell us a little bit more about why the ecosystem is growing and why there's opportunity within?
I mean, I think we just have an incredible confluence in London. And by London, I'm thinking particularly about London because London is kind of where we started the company. It's where I'm based, and where currently our company is based in Stevenage, which is just outside of London. But I think
Yeah.
in London, I kind of like include most of the Golden Triangle. And I think that's part of the advantage, is because, you've got all of these big foci of science, of world-class science and research, very, very close to each other. Because, obviously you look at an America, and there's obviously uh, really big, exciting clusters there as well. But, going from Boston to Silicon Valley isn't quite the same as going from London to Cambridge, right? Where you get in the train for 45 minutes and you're there. And you've got London, you've got Cambridge, you've got Oxford, you've got Stevenage, where we are, which is kind of right in the middle. And it's becoming a really exciting cluster specifically for advanced therapies. Just outside, you've got things like Bristol. And it's very easy to get to all of these places, and to get some of the brightest minds in the world that are working on some of the most difficult problems in the world, and just have a discussion with them. And that's really exciting to me. And everyone is just, at least in my experience, everyone is just so open to collaborating and to actually finding solutions for the problems. That was one of the things that I noticed immediately once I started, before I founded Neobe, once I was still kind of like scoping the field and trying to develop my ideas and trying to understand who was doing what. And I'd go talk to some people that were doing really exciting research in the field, and they'd just be excited to talk about what needs to be done and talk about how we can, maybe build on their research and take it to the next step. And that's very exciting. So I think there's that, just the quality of the science and the quality of the research within a fairly sort of concentrated geographic area. And then you've got, the support of governmental organizations like Innovate UK. I'm originally Portuguese. I wouldn't be able to get funding from government funding from something like Innovate UK the way that we got to get the company off the ground. You've got the funds to do it. You've got the scientific kind of bright minds to do it. You've got an innovatively minded ecosystem, and then you've got the multiculturalism, which I think is also really important, really, really unique, because everyone brings different experiences into your project, and that really enriches it. And it's something that we really value at Neobe. I mean, we're still very small, but we're a team of 5, and each of the 5 people comes from a different country, and that's a really exciting environment to work in, I think.
I agree. Real talent density, and in a very condensed space. Bristol's actually really interesting. There's a really vibrant ecosystem developing in Bristol as well at the moment, which is really interesting to see. Final question for you, and thank you so much for all these wonderful insights during today's discussion. I really enjoyed hearing from you. What do you think are some of the major bottlenecks we're facing in commercializing bioscience research today?
That's a big question, isn't it? So, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is technology transfer. I think that is really a problem that is coming more and more to the fore. I've seen a lot of articles recently, particularly in the Financial Times, discussing this, and I think it's a problem that the UK really needs to come to terms with. That if you really want to take, in the UK, you've got some of the biggest, most exciting universities in the world, particularly in the life sciences. And if you are serious about wanting to take some of the knowledge that is being generated in these universities and turning it into commercialized products, there does need to be a big reform in the way that technology transfer is managed in the UK, and in the way that technology transfer offices work with investors, and in the way that they work with potential founders and with potential sort of early leadership of these startups in a way that actually attracts investment into the UK. Because right now, both in terms of the amount of the transparency of the project, the kind of fees that are involved, the equity that is often negotiated by the universities. All of these things create barriers to innovation that I think really need to be addressed.
And that's such a travesty, isn't it? I mean, it's, just to think that barrier is there and that things are, it really shouldn't be. What's the appetite for, this big reform in your view?
I think there is an appetite for it. I've seen a lot of movement in that direction. And keep in mind, I've also been back in the UK and in the innovation sort of ecosystem for just over 2 years. And even within those short 2 years, I've definitely seen a shift in this area. Even George Freeman has been talking about that very recently, and I think that's really encouraging to hear, because I think at the end of the day, even though there is kind of it can generate a difficult environment, as you were alluding to. I think at the end of the day, everyone wants to push in the same direction, and it's just finding the right way to ensure that everyone is able to push in the direction of innovation, while still being able to continue doing that from the university side, from the investor side, from the founder side, that they can all guarantee their future as drivers of innovation. So I think I see change, and I want to believe that change is going to be positive, but there's a lot of work that needs to be done.
Maybe slow moving change.
Yes.
But likewise, I share the sort of optimism.
That's why I'm so excited about the possibility of building innovative projects, kind of the way that we're doing it with deep science ventures, kind of turning it a little bit on its head. And instead of starting from the innovation and building a market around it, start with the problem and build the solution, with the market in mind from the beginning. I think we really have the tools to do that right now. But in order to be able to achieve that, I think there do need to be some changes in the fundraising landscape to enable more projects like this to take off the ground, because there's clearly, everyone talks about the valley of death. There's clearly a bit of a chasm there where, we were fortunate enough to be able to get some grants and some early stage investment to get off the ground. And I think, hopefully we'll get to the point where we will prove the technology and we'll get the additional funding to get there. But there is this sort of early stage that isn't right at the beginning, but it's also not quite, a fully developed project that is very difficult to find funding for. Because I think people who are building projects like this, our definition of early stage and most funders' definition of early stage is a little bit different, because funders are used to seeing academic projects that have 2, 3, 4 years of data behind them. And if you want to drive innovation in this way, I think the understanding of how these projects are built needs to change a little bit.
For sure. Is there anything else you would like our listeners to know that we might not otherwise have covered in our discussion today?
The last year has been challenging, sort of market-wise and financially wise.
For everyone.
For everyone.
For many. I mean, it's been a challenging market, right? The climate across the board has been challenging.
Really challenging, yes. And I think it's really easy to look at that and go oh, this is pointless. It's really hard. There's why would I try and fight against the tide on this? The fact of the matter is, I really do believe that the good ideas get through. So I think if people have a good idea and you're willing to put in the work to demonstrate that idea, and you've got a clear market for that idea, there really is still an environment to get these ideas into commercializable innovation in the UK. And I do think that this is a really exciting ecosystem to work in. And I do still encourage people to do it. I mean, I certainly am not looking back from my decision to take this step into the unknown in the beginning. So I don't really know what else to say beyond just we need more innovators. So
No, I love it. Absolutely. Thank you so much, Pedro. It's been a really interesting discussion. I've really enjoyed hearing from you and just love what you guys are doing, the innovation. I really wish you all the success.
Proud to have this podcast sponsored by Octopus Ventures, one of Europe's largest and most active VCs, with over £1 billion under management and a portfolio of more than 100 companies. Their investment team specialise in 5 areas: health, fintech, deep tech, consumer and business-to-business software. And the health team is looking to back entrepreneurs who are transforming the health industry, from digital therapeutics through to biotech, at seed, Series A and Series B.